Greetings, traveler.
In this video, we'll be covering all the new Demon, Mech, and Naga reveals. As usual, we have the removed cards first. As you can see, we have a lot of the self-damage going out. No more Ashen Corruptor, Prince Malchezaar, but notably also no more baddie Terror Guard. That was a huge part of Demons in this meta, where we played around Shadow Dancer and Felfire Conjurer, get a lot of staffs and then cast a lot of spells, get huge stats with the baddie. We also see no more Wrathweaver, no more Percussionist, so really all the self-damage stuff is out, and we're going to be playing a new style of demons. For mechs, we see no more Boom's Monster, no more Mecha Jiraxis, no more Marquee Ticker, so that's the Electron strategy as we see with Boom's Monster. That's rotating out, also to make room for new stuff. We also see Kangur out, so that's very specifically for Phalanx. That matters, because Kangur plus Phalanx is actually a really good combo, so that does make Phalanx notably weaker. For Nagas, we have no more Dark Rest plus Groundbreaker combo, no more Warden of Old, no more Reborn with the Weary Mage. So the Reborn does hurt quite a bit, but we lose Showy Cyclist, which is a really good Reborn target. Also Slumber Sorcerer, but we're still going to have the tier 3 Naga that generates spellcrafts, and Weary Mage was a really good target for that. So that does change things quite a bit. And a big part of Nagas was Groundbreaker, so again, we're going to see what new strategies we're going to be playing with this season. Our first new Naga card is basically a replacement for the Coin Naga, but this one can get more coins or 0 coins if you get unlucky or lucky. With Rally, you can attack multiple times and get the effect, so if this thing survives and attacks multiple times, it's really cool. If it gets sniped, you're very sad. Getting the gold coin is also better than the spellcraft, because the coin you can just hold, right? So that overall, I like this unit quite a bit more. It's also just insanely overstated. A 3/6 that gives you economy is insane. So I can already call that this will definitely get nerfed. So for the first few days or however long this lasts, just buy this every time you see it on tier 3. This is, yeah, a 3/6 that gives you money is just insane. Then we have Rhyme Scale Priestess. This gives you a spellcraft that gives you then a random tavern spell that gives you stats. So generally speaking, whenever you get a random thing, you can only get that from your tier or below. So you're not going to get Azurite Empowerment on tier 4, but this is just going to give you Shiny Ring or the jug thing, you know, any kind of tavern spell that increases your stats. And we'll see that with the spell increasing, right, from the spellcraft where you get more health. That's a pretty useful combo. That's a really nice combo. So this seems pretty decent to pick up, especially if you have some spell buffing going on. Then the new tier 6 Naga is Wrath Scale Rogue. After another friendly Naga gains health, give it that much attack. Nagas really need that. That is a crazy good scaling engine if you are just buffing a ton of health, which you generally do because the Naga spellcraft exclusively buffs health. So I've had so many Naga games where I have 0 attack on my spells and 18 health or some weird number, because not only do you get the spellcraft from having the unit on your board that gives you the extra health to your spells, you also just get it generated randomly through all kinds of stuff, right? So yeah, usually you get quite a few of those. So this is a really nice thing. We're also going to see another synergy card with this, the Sundered Matriarch. Whenever you cast a spell, give your minions 2 health. That's pretty silly. Again, right, that's first glance. I can always be off on those, but casting a spell means casting a coin, casting a spellcraft, casting a tavern spell, even triple reward is classified as a spell. You probably want to run this with Bran, so you can play the coin Naga, right, for more coins. You can play Rodeo for more spell generation. You could just, you know, cycle anything with a battle cry that generates spells like shiny rings and all that. So just, yeah, bonkers, right? Especially if you combine this with the Wrath Scale Rogue, you're going to get so much health, so much damage. You're going to get extra stats on your spells as well. So a lot of the times these spells are going to have a bonus effect on top of the health you're giving to your minions. So yeah, again, seems really good. We're going to have to see how it feels during the playtest, but yeah, I'll definitely be trying this. Then the new mech card, we have Geared Guard. Rally, give a different friendly minion Divine Shields. As a 2/4 on tier 2, that's really strong. You can compare that to Selfless Hero. It does have the Downside, again, that it can get sniped, but early on tier 2, you have 4 HP, it's not always going to die, and it can also attack multiple times if your units survive. So seems like a solid pickup for tempo. Mooncatcher is a 1/1 Divine Shield Reborn. That just feels really weak, but we will see that there is a Divine Shield payoff later. So because it reborns, you can get rid of your Divine Shield twice. So that is a pretty big asset. We're also going to see that there's a way to increase the damage on your mechs similar to Goldrin. So this is kind of nice where it will just reborn with a lot of damage and Divine Shield. So it's really more a unit for later or for setting something up. Ruins Renovator is a Divine Shield minion itself, and Death Rattle summon a random Divine Shield minion. So you can get a Ruins Renovator, which then summons a Mooncatcher, which then summons itself again with Reborn. So you can see that there's lots of ways to generate Divine Shield minions. And again, that's going to be relevant here is we have the Gleaming Trader. Divine Shield, so itself, right? And after a minion loses Divine Shield, your minions have +2 attack for the rest of this combat. So that's what I mean with similar to Goldrin, where you can really ramp up the damage on your mechs. We already saw that Mech Horse is back, so that's going to be a pretty good unit payoff for this thing. You can have Ruins Renovator then with lots of damage, which then summons a random Divine Shield minion. As we talked about, Mooncatcher is suddenly a lot more appealing if you have, like, I don't know, like 30 extra damage on your mechs. You now have a 30 damage Divine Shield that reborns with Divine Shield, so suddenly it makes a lot more sense. So this seems to be the new mech strategy where you build a board full of Divine Shields and then you put, you know, 1 or 2 Gleaming Traders in the back and you just ramp up all your damage and just watch all the little Divine Shield or Mech Horse minions deal so much damage. Whirring Protector is a new magnetic where it gives your minion a rally effect. When it attacks, give all your other minions 5 attack. That's similar to something that Battle Cruiser already does, where it attacks and it buffs your minions, and that's really good tempo. So again, on the right board, you can put this on a Wind Fury unit perhaps. You can get your Deflecto bots, super high attack, so seems like a solid tempo option, especially with something like Hollow Rover, right? Because you're going to put that in the front anyway. Then a new demon card, Stray Satyr. After a friendly demon deals damage, gain +1 attack. Now we saw all of the self damage being removed, so this is mainly for combat where your demons will be dealing damage. This will then gain attack. So this starts out as a 1/6 and then in the combat it can ramp up to, I don't know, something like a 3/6. So if you already have some demons on your board, then this is like an okay tempo pickup early. The Improviser, they're so witty with that. It's Avenge 3, minions in the tavern have +1/+1 until next turn. We're going to see that's a really synergistic piece with the next card because we have Cupcake Peddler. I'm going to talk about these cards in tandem because they're pretty linked together. This is Avenge 4, this is Avenge 3. You get Corrupted Cupcakes, which is basically the art of this thing, which is cool, where you can eat the shop. And then, of course, if you have lots of small units on your board with the Improviser, you can buff your shop a lot and then get a big payoff with the Corrupted Cupcakes, hopefully farming like 2 of those in the combat and getting a lot of stats probably on your Cupcake Peddler so it survives and you can get more and more and more. So we're going to have more of a like small demons in the front, big demons in the back, Avenge type strategy. Then we have a new tier 6 demon, Lord of the Ruins. After a friendly demon deals damage, give friendly minions other than it +2/+2. So this means that during the combat, especially if you're against something like tokens and undead, every time your demon attacks and deals damage or gets attacked and deals damage, you're just buffing your board the whole time. So if you have multiple Lord of Ruins in the back, you can get quite a bit of tempo. Now, this probably falls off quite a bit later on because then combat is more like, you know, smack, minions crash into each other and, you know, it's like a one shot and it doesn't really matter whether you get like +4/+4 on your board or not. But early on, this seems like some pretty decent tempo, especially if you're going to be running lots of these small Avenge type demons in the front to get your payoff with your Cupcake Peddler later on. We also see Devout Hellcaller, which is a small version of the 6-drop we just saw. After another friendly demon deals damage, gain 1/1, but this one gains it permanently. So again, could be something you put in the back when you have all those smaller Avenge type demons in the front, and then you get the payoff here. And here we have the big payoff card for these engines. We just covered Lord of Ruins and Devout Hellcaller. Silent Enforcer is how you deal damage. It is a taunt death rattle, deal 4 damage to all non-demon minions. So whenever this goes off, every demon that is, every non-demon that is damaged separately here will count for a Hellcaller trigger or a Lord trigger. And other than that, you can also just use this to counter undead or beasts. This is basically Blaster, but it deals 4 damage instead of 3 damage. And you can use Hawkstrider or Tidus or stuff to trigger this more to really basically remove the combo pieces before they get online, or to just kill a bunch of low HP undead. So not something I would say that is going to be super viable for end game, because the scaling isn't going to be permanent, at least not on the 6-drop. Whenever you damage in combat, it's not going to be permanent scaling, but it should be a really nice tempo boost. So if you do happen to triple into this guy, Lord of Ruins, and you have an early Silent Enforcer, that should be a ton of buffs to your board when you have 1 or 2 of these guys in the front dying, buffing your whole board. So it should be a nice tempo spike, but will probably fall off later when other compositions are acquiring permanent scaling. And, you know, you can do this on a Devout Hellcaller, but that's not going to be enough to win the game. Then we have Void Lord back, but he's an Earl now instead of a Lord. That's a great name. It's a tier 3 Death Rattle, summon 2 1/3 demons with taunt. Now, again, what we've talked about, that setup of put the small Death Rattle demons in the front. That's exactly this guy. He spawns taunts, so that's going to trigger your Cupcake Peddler. That's going to trigger your Improviser, or what was his name? Yeah, Improviser. You get a lot of value that way, and it's a lot of small instances of dealing damage to trigger your buffs, right? Whenever a demon deals damage. Then we have a new duo-specific card, Dark Dazzler. After your teammate sells a minion, gain its stats once per turn. I can already see that from my friends that play duos that are very, very high ranked in duos, X rank 1, often rank 1. They're gonna break this somehow, where they're gonna do something with Mutinous and then like switch a unit and like, here's a big guy, you sell it, then I get the stats. It's gonna be insane. So they're probably gonna make some really big units with this. So yeah, I can't wait to see that in action already. Urzel is back, so we still are going to have access to shop eating demons. It's just not going to be quite as powerful as before, because when Urzel was really, really strong, we had Archimond in the meta, which means that you would play Wrathweaver, Archimond, deal self-damage the whole time, get a lot of value for free, which means you would be playing demons to trigger your Wrathweaver, and then when you play a demon, you would eat a shop, and then you would get a spell, and then the spell would be something like Chef's Choice, which would make another demon, and so on and so on and so on. So none of that right now, so that is heavily nerfed. Also, Batty Terrorguard, generally better than Urzel, because you get to combo it with the staffs that the Shadow Dancer generates. But all in all, at high level, this is likely still going to be pretty good, because just shop buffing is such an incredible multiplier, and you can have multiple Urzels on the board so that every time you play a demon, multiple Urzels will eat. So most of the time you'll find a way to make your shop big. We also have that new demon on tier 4 that whenever it attacks, right, it has a rally effect, give the shop 2/2 permanently. So if you have a bunch of those early on, you'll just probably find a way to still break the game with eating demons. Annoyatron is back. This is to support the new Divine Shield archetype, where you just want to spawn lots of Divine Shields, so that makes sense. Replicating Menace is back. That also makes sense, because if we are buffing the damage on all our mechs, all these little 1/1s from Menace are going to be really strong. So I can already see a Deflectobot with 2 of the Menaces on it. You kill the Deflectobot, you think you won the fight, and suddenly there's 6 tokens with 50 damage each, and you're like, oh my god, I'm dead. That's gonna be a nasty ending to the fight. And you can also put it just on minions in the front or in the middle to just help knock off Divine Shields and reset the Deflectobots early and stuff. Menace is just an overall, just like an OG mechanic. It's OG magnetic. It's just a really nice card to have back. Then Beatboxer, the King, is back. Now, we don't see a Cordotron, and that is a very big deal because that's what broke Beatboxer initially. This card is just insane when you play, you know, with our Cordotron. You just get so much money. There have been multiple videos of people reaching 300 gold or something at the start of their turn. It's really silly. So without access to that, without access to Clunker, this is probably going to be way weaker, but probably still decent because Beatboxers are good and Hollow Rover is still in, so you'll be able to farm a lot of magnetics. Reef Riffer is back. That's just a nice little unit to have. It's a nice little tempo on tier 2. Just very fun unit. You know, not broken or anything, just a fun unit to have. Volcanic Visitor, that is a huge early tempo card. You can think about it this way. So generally speaking, early on, you'll choose the damage simply because you'll have some weaker units on the board, such as a one damage unit, 2 damage unit. And giving those extra health doesn't really do anything, but suddenly giving your 2 damage unit 2 extra damage, it now has 4. It can actually trade with something 1 for 1. So when you have a full board and you play Volcanic Visitor, you get 14 extra damage just from 1 unit. That is crazy tempo. So this thing wins you fights early. One of my favorite cards to pick up early because it really does a good job in early and the mid game, and then you just sell it later on and it saves you so much health and allows you to level. Here we have one of those early Avenge Fodder Demons you can put on the left hand side of your board to feed your Cupcake Peddler, for instance, Piggy Bank Imp. We also see that it has a change to it where now when it is a golden one, it will summon 2 4/1 imps, which is a major improvement. Before you would just summon an 8 and 2, I believe. And while that's okay, that doesn't really help your Avenge setup. So nice little change here. And here we have Icky Imp, another one of those Avenge Fodder Demons that also got a nice little buff. It now summons 4 1/1s instead of 2 2/2s. Very useful for your Avenge cards. You don't always have board space to summon 4 1/1s, but especially if you have some taunts and you position correctly, you can get at least 3 here, which is still quite an upside. I would rather have 3 1/1s than 2 2/2s in the context of getting some Avenge value. Then with all this Avenge Demon shenanigans, Soul Juggler can be missing, of course. This card hasn't been in the game for a very long time. Now, there are 2 very big changes here. The damage has been upgraded from 3 to 4, which is normally you have to keep up with power creep, and it is now also a demon, which is a huge deal. Not only is it easier to get Soul Juggler through something like Chef's Choice or Scope, you also trigger your Lord of Ruins or your Devout Hellcaller if you deal damage while pinging with the Soul Juggler. Now, again, this whole pinging, buffing, demon, Soul Juggler comp, I don't really see it as a late game build, but just a phenomenal mid game tempo spike. So you're gonna hate playing against this when somebody has early Soul Juggler, early Icky Imp. You're just gonna be like, ah, bro, why are you doing this to me? It's just so much damage. This was already the case back in the day with Soul Juggler. It's such a nasty tempo card. But just keep in mind that if you do have this on your board, you are likely going to pivot into either Shop Eating Demons or a different strategy altogether. You're unlikely to be able to take a first place in the lobby just by stacking more Soul Jugglers and Lord of Ruins, but it's going to be a just fantastic tempo spike. Utility Drone is back. So it was a tier 6 because we had some really good magnetic support before, but because we're losing a lot of that, we are gonna put it back on tier 4. It's a 4/5 and you get +1/+1 end of turn. Now, why is that still important to have Utility Drone? Because we have Beatboxer back, and without a Quartertron, without a bigger payoff, like just anything, right? Like obviously we're not gonna have Boom's Monster and Beatboxer in the same meta, but there isn't really a massive payoff for Beatboxer. Now that you have Utility Drone back, there is, because now you just have a bunch of magnetics, you play Drakari, you trigger end of turn, and because you have a lot of magnetics on all of your minions, the Beatboxers get as well, and the Beatboxers get huge. Deep Blue is back, but it's going to be a tier 4 minion again, so this is really in line with everything we've seen until now. Lots of, I guess, reverse power creep. It's lowering the power level a little bit, so moving things back in their original spot. This was really fun with Zesty, right? Zesty Crooner is an archetype that you can play. It also works really well with Eyes later on. You can use Eyes of the Earth Mother on both the Zesty and the Crooner, so that scales incredibly well. Overall, this is a little risky to commit to early unless you have like a really clear signal. So you would need like 2 Zesties and you find a deep blue. You don't doubt, of course, you're very happy to pick that up. But you don't have to play that for the rest of your game if you don't keep hitting, a lot of Crooners and stuff. Then Shadow Dancer is going to go back to a tier 4. So we saw huge nerfs to demons because they were very strong. And now that we're in a different meta, we're not going to have as much support. We've already seen the removal of Baddie Terror Guard. So now this is going to back to tier 4. And they're going to give it Taunt, which is great because this thing surviving is one of the most annoying experiences when you're playing demons. So I love that they're giving it Taunt straight away. Although it won't really grow as big anymore because you won't have the Baddie Terror Guard buffing it, which to be fair was a really annoying experience. So at least now it's going to stay small. You can run your Titus, you can reborn it. It's going to have Taunt. So reborn it with Mechadrexis. Actually, no, Mechadrexis is out, so you're not reborning this anymore. But still, very nice change to give this Taunt. And now we have Hollow Rover. Hollow Rover is now tier 6. It's going to be a 412. So wow. I guess they really played around with this and said, okay, it's too good at 5. It's going to spiral you out of control too fast. Beatboxer is in. You don't want to have a bunch of Hollow Rovers running around. We're going to make it tier 6. We're going to make it a 412. And it's a rally effect now. That does make sense, right? It's whenever it attacks. So that means you could maybe even splash that in some kind of menagerie rallying build where this just generates some value for itself. You can give this Wind Fury, right? That makes it very strong because Rally triggers whenever it attacks. So you're going to get both the double magnetics and the double whenever a Rally minion attack effects that you might have in the back. So quite interesting. I can see why that would get nerfed to be a tier 6. Rickety Repairbot is going to move to tier 5 from tier 4. End of turn, you magnetize a random magnetic. This is the first time we see Rickety Repairbot and Beatboxer in the same game, yes. So Eyes of the Earth Mother on this is probably a bit too strong because if you have a bunch of golden repair bots and you have golden Drakari and then you play Beatboxer, that goes very quickly because the synergy is pretty sweet with Utility Drone. You can run Utility Drone, you can run repair bots, you already want to run a Drakari if you have those. You add Beatboxer on top of that, suddenly there's massive scaling. So probably makes sense that they want to make this tier 5 and make it so that you can target this with Eyes of the Earth Mother. Then Zarina will be +2 attack instead of 3 attack. Again, that's in line with all those nerfs we've seen. These are buffs that happened when there was massive power creep. Now that the power level is being scaled back a bit, this is going back to a more reasonable number, +2. Dagger Spine is going back to a tier 4 instead of tier 5. That's likely just because they want to move some stuff around with the Naga tiers and create some space. Yeah, Myrmidon is going from tier 4 to tier 5, so that probably makes sense. They're moving those around. Again, this is likely just power creep, where Eyes of the Earth Mother on this is now too good, now that we're going to have, no more anomalies, no more trinkets, adding power level to the game, so makes sense that you move this to tier 5. Now we have Tranquil Meditative, goes from tier 4 to tier 5, but it now grants 2 extra health. So that makes the golden 4 extra health. We can see why that gets put a tier up because that's now twice as good and really, really scales nicely with that setup with the new tier 6 Naga that gives you extra damage whenever you gain health. So we can farm lots of health with this and then get a huge payoff there. Coilscar Sapper gets a similar buff as the Shadow Dancer. It's now Taunt by default, which again is just such nice quality of life. I like that when they make changes like this because it's so frustrating when this attacks, a Mana Saber token doesn't die and you're like, give me my value. But we no longer have the Reborn, so it's a little bit less powerful, but still a nice thing to have. And then we have Fauna Whisperer going back to cast Natural Blessing to the minion to the left of this instead of adjacent. Again, I've said it a million times already. This is because it needed to be buffed to keep up with crazy strategies such as Murlocs and Demons, but now that everything gets toned down a bit, this is also back to just casting to the left. That's it for today, guys. If you want to stay up to date with all the latest changes, make sure to subscribe. We will have a new video for you guys tomorrow and then 2 more later on Also, the early access event will be on the 1st of August on my Twitch stream, so make sure to tune in for that if you want to know what the strongest strategies will be on day 1.